which then is a challenge for you, because the more luxury your product, the higher your prices, the more luxurious your product is, the harder you're going to have to work for the customer. And this is an example. Swan's Island blankets is an example. They sell, their starting price point for a blanket is $500. It's kind of amazing. You know, with blankets priced, you know, $5 at Kmart, how can they find customers to spend $500 for the blanket? And they found it by telling a story of organic farming and cute little lambs and sheep that they grow on the Swan's Island farm. They are artisanal, and that's where the value is for their product. It's an artisanal product, but they have to work very hard to find customers, potential customers, where that story resonates with those customers, which is what you have to do too. You have to find customers, people, high-income customers who can spend lots of money for wine, but where the story that you have to tell really does resonate with them. And in understanding the consumer, we also need to understand the psychology, the psychographics, the why people buy. And let's talk a little bit about that too, the psychology. In our survey, we asked the consumers, this 1,200 affluents, when you're given a choice, do you buy good, the better, or the best? And not unexpectedly, the majority, the largest percentage, say that, well, I am buying between good and better and best. I have to put my glasses on to read this. The majority of purchases I make are the better, saving the top of the line experience, the best product or service, less often. I mean, it's an occasional best, but usually I'm buying the better. That's far more than people who are buying the best of the best in most situations. Only, I can't see, 21% say that they buy the best of the best most often. And what's really scary is the 15% of affluents who say, I've been lucky to enjoy certain luxuries in my life, but luxury is not a part of my lifestyle. And I strongly suspect, as we look to the future, that more and more people are going to fall into that latter category, who are just simply not that much into luxury. What does this data tell you? It tells you we've got to give our customer a choice. We have to have products and product lines or brands or in our range that go from good to the better and the best. We've got to give them those choices. And we have to clearly differentiate our products and our product lines and our brands along that idea of good, better, and best. And in today's economy, a high-quality, better product or service at good prices is going to ultimately be a winner for you. But while we need to make sure we've got a good, better, and best, it really is a time, an excellent time for you to think about upping your price and finding a new best of the best place to be, place to live, as a means to reposition your better products. Now, fashion designers have known this for years, because that's what couture fashion is all about. The fashion designers, they do not make much money selling couture fashions, nor do they make like virtually no profit. It's ultimately a loss leader in terms of the product line. The reason why fashion designers do couture shows is because it repositions and helps them sell their cheaper, ready-to-wear bridge lines. It's simply positioning. So it may be a time for you to start thinking about going up in price. As we look to the future, as we look to the psychology of the future, really we need to understand that our future lies with a very, very smart customer. And we have to be as smart as they are. We have to be smarter than they are. We have to position ourselves to understand who these people are and invest in consumer insights. And the key thing about these smart customers is we find that in the past, in the boom times, affluent consumers gained a lot of power as consumers simply by how much money they had to spend. That was where their power came from as consumers. But today, their power as consumers comes from how smart they are. And they know how to shop, they know how to find deals, they know how to work the system to their personal advantage. So we talked about making sure your brand resonates with consumers. It's really important that you give your wine consumers news that they can use, Because these are smart shoppers. They want to know, how can I be a better and smarter wine consumer? So when you're thinking about communications, marketing communications, you need to think about ways to provide insider information to these consumers to make them better shoppers. Your marketing messages, your advertising, your websites, social media presence, all has to give the consumers news and information to help them understand, be better wine consumers. Now, for me, I'm your customer. I'm your affluent luxury consumer, and I am overloaded. I mean, I'm overloaded with information in terms of wine. I would like to know more about wine. I always read the sections of the Wall Street Journal that articles that are devoted to wine, and New York Times. But you know, I don't subscribe to any of the wine trade publications or magazines, Wine Spectator or so on. That's not where I'm at. And I think, you know, we really need to help our consumer understand our business. I mean, more is less, I think, in terms of this wine business. We really need to start thinking about how to make less more, how we can really kind of help our consumer understand. It's not just about varietals, it's not just about years of, you know, when these wines were made. We really need to help our consumers understand and be smart shoppers in stores. And I think, you know, you can learn a lot by looking at industry benchmarks. And I think I look at industries like, I think of the art industry, the cosmetics industry, book retailing, and music. These are all industries that are driven solely by taste. It's really hard to objectively define any of those products as being objectively better, like you can in terms of an objectively better handbag or so on. You really need to kind of start structuring the understanding and presenting yourself at the quality in terms that really are meaningful and understandable by the consumer. And it's very interesting to understand that experiences help us position our products, and they provide context to imprint our brands on the consumer. Now, this is Brian Wansink, and he is the most famous social scientist that you've never heard of. He's the one who invented the 100-calorie snack packs, and he discovered that if we serve food on smaller plates, we eat fewer calories. Now, he did a study of food and the experience of food that is really, I think, very important to understand. He went to Costco and he bought fish, he bought green beans, he bought chocolate cake and scalloped potatoes. You know, we all know the Costco food. He bought it right off the shelf, frozen. He took it back to his lab. He brought one group of people in to eat food just in a plain, vanilla restaurant experience. It had just paper plates, paper napkins, a plain menu that just said, you know, fish, blah, blah, blah. The people ate the food. There was no ambiance at all in the serving of the presentation. Asked them to rate the food on the 1 to 10 scale. They rated the food 3.4 points. So didn't rate very well. Another group of people he brought in and gave them a restaurant experience, a upscale restaurant experience, where he fancied up the menu, described the products in enticing ways. They put linens on the table and candlelight, and they had wine glasses and wine, and they really played it up. The food was exactly the same. It was just presented in a different experience. Asked the people to rate the food. They rated it 8 points on a 10-point scale. So the same food, the different experience, and it really did create a totally different mindset on the part of the consumer. And that's an opportunity that you have. Because in marketing, perception is reality, and the consumer defines the reality, and that defines the value. You, though, have the ability to change that perception through the right messaging, through the right experience, through the right way you wine and dine people, in your winery and in the store experience. And branding ultimately is an investment that you need to make. You need to make a branding message that imprints your brand on the consumer. And branding is far more than designing a label. The label's important, but you also have to think about branding in terms of really basing a consistent message. And it's very important to understand how important people are in making your brands personal. And people are so important in that personal communication. Now yesterday I wanted to tell you about an experience we had because we went up to the Francis Ford Coppola winery. We only had time to visit one winery, and we asked a visitor center. They sent us up there to the Francis Ford Coppola winery. And we had a very nice time. No, I have absolutely no complaints. We had dinner, we had a very nice meal on the patio. We bought a couple of bottles of wines. We ended up spending about $200 in terms of our overall experience. Now, they made a sale with us at the Francis Ford Coppola winery, no question about it. They made a sale, but they really did not create a relationship with us, a branding relationship, because they just seem to have missed so many personal opportunities to interact with us. We went in, we were greeted at the door, but nobody asked, have you ever been here before? Nobody asked us to sign in the guest registry. Nobody got our email address so they could communicate with us. Nobody gave us a newsletter. I was there to kind of find out what's going on in the winery. What are all these, the sticks, the twigs that are sticking out of the ground? Tell me something about it. There was no information about that. Now we saw his Oscar, we saw the Oscars, which were interesting, but again, we really didn't have that personal interaction that made a significant difference. So besides the newsletter, which I think would have been really important, and I think the most important thing that they could do, which they can't do because they don't have the address, the most important thing they could do to have a personal relationship and build a relationship with me is to send me a thank you note, saying a personal handwritten thank you note, saying thank you for stopping by the winery. Because it came all the way from Pennsylvania to see that. And I think that you need legions of people sending personal notes, thanking people to come to your winery. That's how you build a relationship. People really do make that connection in a meaningful way. But ultimately, and you're going to have a meeting later today about advertising, branding has really got to be about keeping it simple. You've really got to be able to create the brand, create the experience, create the perception, but do it in a very simple and easy to understand way. You have a very complex business. Keeping it simple is going to be a big challenge, but you really need to get it all down and make it simple. And ultimately, branding is going to add value to the proposition. And Warren Buffett said, price is what you get, price is what you pay, value is what you get. That's where your ability to manipulate and to change perceptions is by branding. When it comes to the affluent market, pricing is not about the money. Pricing is about the meaning, what it means to me. Now, Nordstrom's is a perfect example of a brand that sells, they don't compete at the highest end, they're certainly not at the low end, but they have found a niche in the luxury space, which is excelling through the service that they provide. And Nordstrom's, by the way, always sends thank you notes to customers. So they really have found a way to provide meaning. So if you want to sell more of a value at $50, $25 bottles of wine, you really need to find that value. And you need to locate the customers who also value the same things that you have to sell. So I want to close now with a couple of take action steps. First, we've got to integrate information, we've got to innovate, and we've got to inspire. And those are my three closing points. Integration. We really need to understand who our customer is. You need to build lists of your customers. You may need to survey them. You certainly need to take every opportunity you've got them in the tasting room to talk to them and gain information with them and understand them. The realities of the luxury market is going to be a trying time between now and 2020. So really the winners are going to be companies that know how to market and really know how to understand their consumer.